The Boy in the Box. In the fall of 1957, I was a boy of 12, brimming with unspent energy and an insatiable curiosity about the world around me. My hometown, a small enclave in Pennsylvania, was a patchwork of familiar faces and winding streets, each corner filled with echoes of laughter and whispers of secrets. Little did I know that my life was about to intertwine with a mystery that would haunt me for years to come. It was a chilly September afternoon when I first stumbled upon the box. I was on my way home from school, my mind buzzing with thoughts of baseball and the latest episode of The Adventures of Superman. As I cut through an old, overgrown lot behind the neighborhood, something caught my eye. It was a wooden box, battered and worn, half buried in the brown, cracked earth. Curiosity tugged at me, and despite the instinctual warnings that flickered in the back of my mind, I approached it. The box was about the size of a coffin, with rusty nails jutting out at odd angles, and a heavy, grimy lid that seemed to hide something significant. My heart raced as I knelt beside it, brushing away the dirt and leaves that clung to its surface. I glanced around, half expecting someone to leap out from behind a tree, but the lot was deserted. Taking a deep breath, I pried the lid open, the creaking sound echoing in the stillness. Inside lay a tattered blanket, stained and frayed at the edges. I reached in, my fingers trembling, and pulled it out. As I unfolded the fabric, my breath caught in my throat. Beneath the blanket was a small boy, not much younger than I was, his pale skin nearly blending with the fabric. He lay curled up in a ball as if trying to escape the world. His face was smudged with dirt, and his eyes, wide, frightened, and glittering with tears, met mine. For a moment time stood still. The air was thick with the weight of his sorrow, and I felt a strange connection to this lost soul. "Hey, are you okay?" I whispered, my voice barely more than a breath. He blinked, and I could see the flicker of recognition in his gaze, followed by a flicker of fear. I don't know," he replied, his voice thin and shaky. "I'm scared." "Me too," I said, trying to comfort him. "What's your name?" "Bobby," he said, and I could hear the tremor in his voice. "They put me in here." "Who put you in here?" I asked, my heart pounding with a mix of concern and dread. He hesitated, glancing around as if the shadows held secrets I couldn't see. "I don't know. I just woke up here. I don't remember anything before." That's when it hit me, this wasn't just a chance encounter. It was a puzzle waiting to be solved. I didn't know how or why, but I felt a determination swell within me. This boy, Bobby, needed help, and I was going to find out what had happened to him. "Okay, come on," I said, extending my hand to him. "Let's get you out of here." He hesitated, glancing at the box with wide, fearful eyes, but eventually took my hand. As he climbed out, I noticed his clothes were tattered, too small for him, and a sense of urgency washed over me. We had to get him home, wherever that was. We made our way through the overgrown lot, the sounds of my neighborhood fading into the background. I led him to my house, my mind racing with questions. What if someone was looking for him? What if he had run away? I didn't know the answers, but I felt a responsibility to protect him. Once inside, I quickly ushered him to the basement, a place where my parents seldom ventured. I rummaged through old boxes filled with toys and clothes, searching for something that could provide comfort. Finally, I found an old sweatshirt that might fit him. "Here, put this on," I said, handing it to him. As he changed, I tried to piece together the fragments of his story. "Do you remember anything at all?" I asked, my voice gentle but insistent. "Just flashes," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "A car. A man." It was dark. He shivered as if the memories were ghosts haunting him. I felt a chill creep down my spine. "A man? What did he look like? Bobby shook his head, his eyes welling with tears. I can't remember. Just then I heard the creak of the basement door. Panic surged through me. Hide. I hissed, and he darted behind a stack of old boxes. I straightened up just as my mother stepped into the room, her brow furrowed in concern. David, what are you doing down here? She asked, her voice tinged with curiosity. Just looking for old toys, I stammered, my heart racing. I could feel Bobby's presence behind me, tense and frightened. Make sure to clean up before dinner, she said, glancing around the room. And don't spend too much time down here, it's dusty. Yes, Mom, I replied, forcing a smile as she turned to leave. Once the door closed, I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. Are you okay? I whispered to Bobby, who had emerged from his hiding spot, his eyes wide with fear. I don't want to go back out there, he said, his voice trembling. What if he finds me? I bit my lip, trying to think. We'll figure this out together, I promise. You're safe here for now. As the evening wore on, I tried to keep Bobby occupied with games and stories, but the weight of our situation hung heavily in the air. My mind raced with thoughts of the man he mentioned, the unknown danger lurking in the shadows. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were in over our heads. That night, after my parents had gone to bed, I lay awake, my mind racing. I glanced over at Bobby, who was curled up on the makeshift bed I had created for him in the corner of the basement. His eyes were closed, but I could see the fear still etched on his face. I wanted to help him, to protect him, but I felt trapped in a web of uncertainty. In the days that followed, Bobby and I formed an unlikely bond. We spent our afternoons in the basement, sharing stories about our lives, our dreams, and the things we loved. He told me about his old neighborhood, the friends he had left behind, and the games they played. It was a world so different from my own, filled with laughter and sunshine, a world he desperately wanted to return to. But each night as darkness fell, the fear would creep back in. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched, that the man from Bobby's memories was searching for him. I tried to reassure him, but I could see the doubt in his eyes. One evening, as we sat in the dim light of the basement, I made a decision. We need to find out who did this to you, I said, my voice steady. We can't stay hidden forever. Bobby looked at me, his expression a mix of fear and determination. But how? I don't even know where to start. We'll go to the police, I suggested, my heart racing at the thought. They'll know what to do. Bobby's eyes widened in fear. What if they don't believe me? What if they take me back? I reached out, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. I'll be there with you. We'll tell them everything together. After a long pause, he nodded slowly. Okay, but what if he finds us before we can tell them? We'll be careful, I promised, though I could feel my own fear bubbling beneath the surface. We'll go first thing in the morning. The night passed in a blur of anxious thoughts, and when dawn broke, I felt a mix of determination and dread. We made our way to the police station, the streets bustling with life, but the weight of our secret pressed down on us. Bobby walked close to my side, his hands shoved deep into the pockets of the oversized sweatshirt. As we entered the station, the scent of coffee and paper filled the air. Officers moved about, their voices a low hum of authority. I approached the front desk, my heart pounding in my chest. Excuse me, I stammered, my voice barely above a whisper. I need to report something. The officer behind the desk looked up, raising an eyebrow. What is it, kid? I glanced back at Bobby, who stood just behind me, his face pale and anxious. My friend. He's in trouble. We found him in a box. He doesn't remember anything. The officer's expression shifted from curiosity to concern. A box? What do you mean? He was hiding in a box in the woods. I think someone put him there, I explained, my words tumbling out in a rush. He's scared and I don't know who took him or why. The officer exchanged a glance with another officer who had approached, his expression serious. All right, let's take this step by step. What's your friend's name? Bobby, I said, turning to him. Tell them what you remember. Bobby stepped forward, his voice trembling. I don't remember much. Just a man, a car, and darkness. The officer nodded, jotting down notes. We'll need to ask you some questions, Bobby. Can you do that? Bobby hesitated, his eyes flickering with fear. What if he finds me? The officer leaned closer, his tone gentle. We'll do everything we can to keep you safe. You're not in trouble. We want to help you. As the officers began to ask questions, I felt a surge of hope. Maybe we would finally find answers. But as the minutes ticked by, I could see the uncertainty in Bobby's eyes. He was terrified, and I wished I could shield him from the reality of our situation. After what felt like hours of questioning, the officers decided to take Bobby to a safe location while they continued their investigation. I felt a pang of fear at the thought of being separated from him, but I knew it was necessary. Stay strong, Bobby, I said as he was led away. I'll be right here. We'll figure this out together. Days turned into weeks as the investigation unfolded. The police worked tirelessly, interviewing neighbors and searching for leads. Yet, despite their efforts, the mystery of Bobby's disappearance remained unsolved. Each day without answers felt like a weight pressing down on my heart. I visited the police station often, hoping for news. Each time I would ask about Bobby, and each time I was met with the same response: we're doing everything we can. But I could see the frustration on the officers' faces, and deep down, I worried that they were losing hope. One rainy afternoon, after another fruitless visit to the station, I found myself wandering through the streets, lost in thought. As I passed the park where we used to play baseball, I spotted a familiar figure sitting on a bench. Bobby. My heart leaped with joy as I rushed over to him. Bobby, you're back. He looked up, a small smile breaking through the shadows of his face. I missed you, David. Did they find anything? I asked, my voice filled with hope. He shook his head, his expression turning serious. But I remember something. A name. I think it might help. A name? What is it? I leaned closer, eager to hear what he had to say. Mr. Carter, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. He was the last person I remember before everything went dark. Mr. Carter? I repeated, my mind racing. Who is he? I don't know. But he lived near my old neighborhood. I think he was watching me. A chill ran down my spine. Do you think he's the one who put you in the box? Bobby nodded slowly. I think he wanted to take me somewhere. I felt a surge of determination. We have to go to his house. Maybe we can find out more. Together, we made our way to the neighborhood where Bobby had lived before. The streets felt different, almost foreign to me, but Bobby seemed to know where he was going. As we approached a small, rundown house at the end of the block, my heart raced. Are you sure this is it? I asked, glancing at him. Bobby nodded, his face pale. This is where I used to live. We stood in front of the house, its paint peeling and windows dirty. The air felt thick with tension, and I could sense Bobby's fear. We can't just go in, he said, his voice trembling. What if he's there? We'll be careful, I reassured him. Let's just take a look. We crept around to the back of the house, peering through a cracked window. Inside, the room was dimly lit, cluttered with old furniture and shadows. I could see a figure moving about, a man with unkempt hair and a weary demeanor. "Is that him?" I whispered, my heart racing. Bobby squinted, his eyes wide. "I think so." We stepped back, our breaths held as we considered our options. "We should call the police," I suggested. "They need to know he's here." But before we could act, the man turned, and I felt my stomach drop as he caught sight of us through the window. Panic surged through me as I grabbed Bobby's hand, pulling him away from the house. "Run!" I shouted, and we took off down the street, our hearts pounding in unison. We didn't stop until we reached the safety of the park, collapsing onto a bench, gasping for breath. "Did he see us?" Bobby asked, his voice shaking. "I don't know," I said, my mind racing. "But we can't go back there. We need to tell the police what we saw." Once again we made our way to the station, adrenaline fueling our determination. As we burst through the doors, the officers looked up in surprise. "We need to talk to you," I exclaimed, my heart racing. "What is it?" one of the officers asked, taking note of our urgency. "We saw him. Bobby remembers the man, Mr. Carter. He's in his house." I blurted out, my words tumbling over each other. The officers exchanged glances, their expressions shifting from curiosity to concern. "Are you sure?" one of them asked. "Yes. We just saw him," Bobby added, his voice trembling with fear. "All right, we'll send a unit over there right away," the officer said, his tone serious. "But you two need to stay here for your own safety." As we waited, I could feel the tension in the air. I glanced at Bobby, who looked both hopeful and terrified. "What if they don't find him?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "They will," I said, trying to sound confident. "They have to." After what felt like an eternity, an officer returned, his expression grim. "We didn't find anyone at the house," he said, his voice steady. "Are you sure this is where you saw him?" "Yes, we saw him," I insisted, frustration bubbling inside me. "He was right there." The officer nodded, his expression sympathetic. "We'll keep looking, but for now you two need to go home. It's not safe to be out at night." Reluctantly, I agreed. As we walked home, a sense of unease settled over me. What if we had missed our chance? What if Mr. Carter was still out there waiting for Bobby? That night, I lay in bed, the shadows of my room stretching across the walls like dark fingers. I couldn't shake the feeling of dread, the knowledge that Bobby's safety depended on us uncovering the truth. I couldn't let him down. The next day, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I gathered all the courage I could muster and made my way back to Bobby's old neighborhood. I had to find out more about Mr. Carter, and the only way to do that was to ask the neighbors. As I approached a nearby house, an elderly woman sat on her porch, knitting. I approached cautiously, my heart racing. "Excuse me, ma'am," I said, my voice trembling. "Do you know a man named Mr. Carter?" Her eyes narrowed slightly and she nodded slowly. "Yes, I know him. He used to live around here. But he's not a good man." "Why not?" I pressed, desperate for answers. "He has a reputation," she said, lowering her voice. "He was always strange, kept to himself. Some say he took in boys who had nowhere to go, but they never came back." A chill ran down my spine. "What do you mean?" "Rumors," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "People said he had a dark side. No one knows for sure what he did, but it's best to stay away." I felt a surge of fear and anger. Bobby was one of those boys, wasn't he? She nodded slowly, her expression grave. "I'm afraid so. You need to be careful." With that, I thanked her and hurried away, my mind racing. I had to tell Bobby. This man was dangerous and I had to protect him. When I returned to my house, I found Bobby sitting on the porch, looking lost in thought. "Bobby," I called, rushing over to him. I found out more about Mr. Carter. His eyes widened with concern. "What did you find out?" "He has a bad reputation. People say he takes boys and does terrible things to them," I said, my heart heavy. "We need to be careful." Bobby's face paled. "I'm scared, David. What if he comes for me again?" "We won't let him," I vowed. "We'll stay together, and if he tries to come after you, we'll tell the police." As the days passed, we kept a low profile, avoiding the neighborhood and staying close to my house. But I could feel the tension building, the fear of the unknown looming over us. One evening as I lay in bed, I heard a soft knock on my window. My heart raced as I crept toward the sound, peering through the curtain. To my shock, it was Bobby, his face pale and eyes wide with fear. "David," he whispered urgently. "He's here." The blood drained from my face as I opened the window, letting him inside. "What do you mean?" "I saw him. I think he's looking for me." Bobby's voice trembled. "Did you see where he went?" I asked, my mind racing. "He was just down the street." "I think he knows we're together," Bobby said, his expression filled with panic. "We need to call the police," I said, my heart pounding. "They can't let him take you." But Bobby shook his head, his eyes filling with tears. "What if they don't believe me? What if he gets away?" I could see the fear etched on his face, and I felt a surge of determination. "We'll figure this out together. I promise I won't let him take you." With that, we made our way to the police station once more, the streets shrouded in darkness. As we approached, I could feel the weight of our situation pressing down on us. But we had to act. Once inside, I rushed to the front desk. "We need to talk to someone. Bobby is in danger," I exclaimed, my voice filled with urgency. The officer looked up, his expression serious. "What's going on?" "There's a man, Mr. Carter. He's looking for Bobby. We saw him," I insisted, my heart racing. The officer exchanged a glance with a colleague, and within moments they were on the move. "All right, let's take this seriously. We'll send a unit to check it out." As we waited, I could feel the tension in the air. Bobby stood beside me, his face pale and anxious. "What if they can't find him?" he whispered. "They will," I said, trying to sound reassuring. But doubt crept into my mind. What if we were too late? After what felt like an eternity, the officers returned, their expressions grim. "We didn't find anyone at the location you provided," one of them said, his tone steady. "Are you sure it was him?" "Yes. We saw him," I insisted, frustration bubbling within me. The officer nodded. "We'll keep looking, but for now you both need to stay safe." Reluctantly we agreed. As we left the station, the weight of uncertainty hung heavy in the air. I could see the fear in Bobby's eyes, and I knew we needed to act quickly. That night we devised a plan. We would stay together, keep watch for any signs of Mr. Carter, and if he approached, we would run to the police station. It was a risky move, but we had to take a stand. As the days passed, we kept a low profile, avoiding the streets and staying indoors. But the fear of being found loomed over us, and each creak of the floorboards sent chills down my spine. I felt like a prisoner in my own home. Then, one fateful evening as we sat in the living room, I heard a soft knock on the door. My heart raced as I exchanged a glance with Bobby. "Did you hear that?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. He nodded, his eyes wide with fear. "What if it's him?" I crept toward the door, my heart pounding in my chest. I peered through the peephole and my stomach dropped. It was Mr. Carter, his face shadowed in the dim light. "Open up, kid," he called, his voice low and menacing. "I just want to talk." Don't open it, Bobby hissed, panic rising in his voice. I stepped back, my mind racing. What do we do? Call the police, Bobby urged, his voice trembling. I grabbed the phone and dialed 911, my hands shaking. Please hurry. There's a man trying to get into my house. As I hung up, I could hear Mr. Carter's voice growing more agitated outside. I know you're in there. Open up. Don't let him in, David, Bobby cried, his eyes wide with fear. Just then I heard the sound of breaking glass and panic surged through me. He's coming in, I shouted, grabbing Bobby's hand. We raced to the back door, but it was locked. As I fumbled with the latch, I could hear Mr. Carter's footsteps growing closer. You can't hide from me, he called, his voice dripping with malice. Finally, the door swung open and we burst into the night, adrenaline propelling us forward. We sprinted down the street, our hearts pounding in unison, the sound of his footsteps echoing behind us. Over there, I shouted, pointing toward the police station. We have to get to safety. As we ran, I could hear Mr. Carter's voice behind us, taunting and angry. You can't escape me, boys. I'll find you. We reached the police station, bursting through the doors, gasping for breath. The officers looked up in shock as we stumbled inside. Help! He's coming, I shouted, my voice filled with desperation. The officers sprang into action, their expressions serious. Where is he? One of them demanded. Outside. He's trying to get in, Bobby exclaimed, tears streaming down his face. Within moments, the officers rushed outside, their radios crackling to life. I felt a surge of hope as I watched them move with purpose, but I couldn't shake the fear that still gripped me. As we waited, the tension in the air was palpable. I could see the concern on the officers' faces as they scanned the streets for any sign of Mr. Carter. Minutes felt like hours, and I could sense Bobby's anxiety growing. Finally, one of the officers returned, his expression grave. We didn't find anyone, he said, his voice steady. But we'll keep an eye out. What if he comes back? Bobby asked, his voice trembling. We'll make sure you're safe, the officer reassured him. You can stay here until we figure this out. As we settled into a small waiting area, I felt a mix of relief and anxiety. We were safe for now, but the threat of Mr. Carter still loomed overhead. Days turned into weeks as the investigation continued. The police worked tirelessly, interviewing neighbors and searching for leads, but despite their efforts, the mystery of Bobby's disappearance remained unsolved. As the weeks passed, Bobby and I leaned on each other for support. We shared stories, dreams, and fears, our bond growing stronger with each passing day. He told me about his life before everything changed, his friends, and the things he loved. I felt honored that he trusted me with his story, but the weight of uncertainty hung heavy in the air. Each day without answers felt like a burden, and I could see the worry etched on Bobby's face. What if he finds me again? He asked one night, his voice barely above a whisper. We'll be ready, I vowed, determination rising within me. We'll stick together no matter what. Then, one fateful evening, I received a phone call from the police. They had found something, evidence that could lead us to Mr. Carter. My heart raced as I rushed to the station, Bobby at my side. When we arrived, the officers greeted us with serious expressions. We need to talk to you, one of them said, leading us to a small room. What have you found? I asked, my pulse quickening. We've been investigating Mr. Carter's past, the officer began, and we found reports of missing boys from the neighborhood. It seems he has a pattern. Bobby's face paled as he listened, the fear evident in his eyes. What does that mean? He asked, his voice trembling. It means we believe he may have targeted you, the officer replied, his tone steady. "But we also believe he might be planning to leave town soon." "What do we do?" I asked, my mind racing. "We can't let him get away." The officer nodded. "We need your help. If you can remember anything else about him, anything at all, it could make a difference." As Bobby and I exchanged glances, I felt a surge of determination. We had come too far to back down now. "I'll do whatever it takes," I vowed. With that, we began to piece together the fragments of Bobby's memories, recalling every detail we could think of about Mr. Carter. The police took notes, their expressions serious as they listened intently. Hours passed as we recounted every interaction, every strange occurrence. Finally, as the sun began to set, the officers thanked us for our help. "We'll do everything we can to find him," one of them said, his tone reassuring. As we left the station, I felt a mix of hope and anxiety. Perhaps this time we would finally get the answers we needed. In the days that followed, the police increased their efforts, tracking down leads and interviewing anyone connected to Mr. Carter. I could feel the tension building, the anticipation of finally bringing him to justice. Then one evening, as I was watching television, the phone rang. My heart raced as I picked it up. "Hello," I answered, my voice steady. "David, it's the police," the officer said, his tone serious. "We need you to come down to the station immediately." "Is it about Bobby?" I asked, my pulse quickening. "Yes. We have information that could help us locate him," the officer replied. With that, I rushed to Bobby's side, and together we made our way to the station. As we entered, the officers greeted us with serious expressions. "We have a lead on Mr. Carter," one of them said, his voice steady. "We believe he's planning to leave town tonight." My heart raced as I exchanged a glance with Bobby. "What do we do?" I asked, anxiety flooding my thoughts. "We need to set up a perimeter," the officer replied. "We'll need your help to identify him if he tries to leave." As we prepared for what lay ahead, I felt a surge of determination. We had come too far to back down now. We were going to bring Mr. Carter to justice no matter what it took. As night fell, we waited anxiously outside the station, the air thick with tension. Officers moved about, their radios crackling to life as they communicated with each other. I could see the determination in their eyes, and I felt a sense of hope rising within me. Finally, just as the clock struck midnight, I heard the sound of footsteps approaching. My heart raced as I turned to see a figure emerging from the shadows. "It's him," I shouted, my voice filled with urgency. The officers sprang into action, surrounding the figure as he stepped into the light. It was Mr. Carter, his expression dark and menacing. "You thought you could get away from me?" he sneered, his voice dripping with malice. "Get him!" one of the officers shouted, and in an instant they were on him, taking him down to the ground. Bobby and I stood back, our hearts pounding as we watched the scene unfold. The officers restrained Mr. Carter, their expressions serious as they cuffed him. "You're not going to hurt anyone else," one of them said, his tone firm. As they led him away, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. This nightmare was finally coming to an end. In the days that followed, Bobby and I stayed close, finding solace in each other's company. We talked about our hopes for the future, the dreams we had of escaping the shadows of the past. Together we would heal. As the sun rose on a new day, I felt a sense of hope blooming within me. The boy in the box was no longer lost, he was free. And as we walked side by side, I knew that we would face whatever came next together. The end of one chapter was only the beginning of another, and as I looked at Bobby, I realized that we were stronger together. No longer just survivors, we were warriors ready to conquer whatever lay ahead.